Walt Chappell, and I'm the president of Educational Management Consultants. Been working with the legislature a lot, with Senate Bill 155, to make sure that it's drafted and passed, make it possible for kids in high school, juniors, and seniors to get certified in industrial trades. It's working very well. I just talked with the Senate President a few minutes ago, trying to get more money in that till, so we're going to provide some ideas on how to fill that pipeline today.
Great. Well, my name is Kelly Dugan. I'm with Bartlett and West. We're headquartered out of Topeka, Kansas, but we're all throughout the Midwest. I'm the HR director, been in HR for about 25 years. I came out of the banking industry into the engineering and technology consulting industry, and have found that it's a little bit different in terms of recruiting. Right now, what we're focused on specifically is bringing in interns, and then that less experienced project engineer. And then we have a new position called practice builder to our company, which has provided us a lot of opportunities to think outside of the box in terms of looking for talent. So we think about this in there.
I'm Beverly Sauerwein. I'm with Sauerwein Construction here in Wichita, Kansas. And I am involved with NAWIC, the National Association of Women in Construction, and we have been focusing on getting middle school, elementary age kids interested in construction, because if you don't start the process young, you lose them by the time they get to high school. So if we have time for video, I've got a beautiful video on introducing kids, girls, into Camp NAWIC. So the focus for NAWIC is getting involved early with kids, bringing them into the construction industry.
Good afternoon, I'm Carrie Cox. I work with Alan Gibson Hulick as an HR consultant. So I get to work across industries, not just in construction, helping employers, not just with recruiting, but building their brands and making sure they have a good workplace culture so that they can recruit employees into that.
I'm Ty McGowan. I'm with Burns & McDonnell. We're an engineering consulting firm based in Kansas City. I am here in the Wichita office. We focus a lot on design, build, project delivery. So when I'm talking about recruiting, I'm not just looking at engineers. I'm looking at engineers that can maybe also help build something or steer something the right way. And yeah, I'm representing DBIA today.
My name is Humberto Jimenez. I'm a consultant with the Global Thinking Group. Human resources is a specialty area of the consult, and one of the areas is recruitment marketing. And I'm also glad to be the chair of the Build Up Kansas initiative with the AGC as well.
So we have a good cross-section of panelists today. I guess I'd like to start with, in your professional capacity, what are you seeing as the biggest challenge? If you're an employer, what are you seeing as your biggest challenge? If you're a consultant, what are you seeing from your customers as their biggest challenge? We all know that workforce shortages is been on our horizons, or been really in front of us now for the last 10 or 15 years. Some of us have been ignoring that, but I think everybody now knows it's not going to go away anytime soon. So with that in mind, from a consulting standpoint, what are you seeing out there? And then if you're an employer, what are you seeing is one of your biggest challenges? Walt?
One of the biggest challenges, I want to make sure each person here has got a copy of this. There's more here if you came in. Yeah, there's a spectrum on that. The biggest challenge, I think, is the assumption that you've got to have a 4-year degree. You've got to be in liberal arts, you've got to come out with a BA, and of course a lot of student debt. I think that is something that we can convince our legislators of, our parents, our school boards. Make sure that as you talk to people, you help them understand there are other pathways, other ways to gain practical skills that are employable. And one of the main reasons I'm here today is to talk about the fact we've got to fill that pipeline. You don't just start with the internship out here if you're a master's student. We have in Kansas now what's called the individual plan of study. It starts in 8th grade. So as a kid comes in with his parent, they want to learn some construction trades, that's great. Those pathways are identified, those competencies are there, and you're going to find some in this handout that I provided to you from Wichita and from Blue Valley, and then from the folks at Workforce Alliance. These competencies are being taught to kids now from 8th grade on. So when they come out of high school, they can come onto your job site and actually know how to hold a hammer, cut that, you know, that truss, make sure it's correct. There are a lot of skills that are gonna have that you're gonna want. So the assumption that we don't have folks already learning some of these skills is wrong. But the assumption we have to go for a 4-year college degree before you become successful is also a major assumption. If we can overcome that, I think we've got a lot of things going for the construction.
Walt, real quick, just for you, Walt's a workforce junkie in terms of how it's tied with the legislature. He mentioned Senate Bill 155. Many of you may not know what Senate Bill 155 was. Walt was involved, but it started really, fortunately, we had a governor, whether you liked the governor or whether you didn't like him. The one thing that Governor Brownback did bring positive, he was big on vocational training. And he reached out, working with the legislature and industry groups, consultants like Walt. AGC of Kansas was intricately involved. In fact, was the largest industry group out there supporting the Senate Bill 155, which provided $1,000 to any high school, community college, or VOTEC that enrolled kids into vocational programming. And its high water mark reached about $42 million a few years ago, and we saw a tripling of the number of high schools that joined in with our programming. One of the components of Senate Bill 155 was it had to have some attached credential. That's where AGC's NCCER curriculum came into play, and other industries had their particular credentials. But I wanted to make sure that we have a little footnote down there when we use some acronyms and things of that nature. When we say NAWIC, Bev knows what NAWIC is, and several other people, but some other people don't, so we wanted to take a little time and say what that is. So Senate Bill 155 has been crucial. There was a paring back, as Walt said on that. What was interesting is we set up a great PR thing for the governor in the re-election campaign up at Hutchinson Community College in front of about 100 welders in front of about 50 welding booths. And as soon as he got re-elected, he decided to make a major cut on the program. So our job now is, fortunately, we stepped in and said, keep the policy. If you got to pare the numbers back, then do that, but keep the policy, because if budgets go back up, we can re-implement that. So let's talk in terms of what you're seeing and challenge out there.
Yeah, I think a challenge that most of us are aware of is trying to find the candidate that's not actively looking, and we could talk for hours about that. But a challenge that we are trying to focus on right now, that we're making efforts on, is diversity within our workforce. Looking for diversity in terms of gender, in terms of race, but also in terms of lifestyle, in terms of their background and their experience. And so we've got some different things underway within our company without trying to shove it down people's throats, because we have found that there's a backlash when you do that. So we're trying to talk about diversity in terms of, it's not just what you see on the surface in terms of the gender or maybe with minorities or race, but it's also, we've narrowed down where it is we typically get our recent college graduates from, and it's like 3 universities. Well, there are other universities out there that we need to start reaching out to as well to bring in that type of experience and that type of background, that type of education, lifestyle. We have employees, we have, I think 19 offices in 9 different states, but we work in more states than that. I think we're in 45 different cities, so there's a lot of experience and diversity out there, and it's encouraging our employee owners to understand that we need their help in bringing that diversity in. So one of the challenges that you run into is that your employee owners are some of your greatest resources, and we see that when we look at where do our referrals come from. Our second best sources are employee owners, but when you don't have a diverse workforce, typically what people do is they recruit people that look like them, think like them, graduated from the same school as them. So we're asking them to think a little bit more broadly. So that's one of it's a challenge I'd like to look at as an opportunity that we've been focusing on more this last, I'd say, year and a half.
Yeah.
NAWIC, National Association of Women in Construction, you become a member of that association because you are in the industry. So our focus is just making the industry very visible to anyone not participating, while at the same time also educating our own people, offering them education classes, it gives them some certifications that they might already have, kind of geared towards the office personnel, but also the training, the skills is with our Camp NAWIC. So it's just kind of a focus to make the institute visible by our participation in communities and nationwide as an association.
Yeah, just to piggyback a little on what Walt said, it's not just, or it's individuals that go into these careers in construction, they don't need a four-year degree oftentimes. And so it's not just getting the students interested at a younger age, it's getting the parents interested. And I think that's a marketing challenge the industry faces in terms of making sure parents know that these careers are lucrative, even if you don't go to college and get a four-year degree, because parents are pushing those individuals along, and they're pushing them to college. And we've got too many people in Kansas that have college degrees. We don't need more of them. We need people with two-year degrees or that can go right into the workforce with skills. So that's kind of a marketing challenge you and manufacturing industry face together.
So my difficulty is somewhat location specific, but I think a lot of you can probably relate. We have a really hard time recruiting people to Wichita. So we're a company of 7,000 people, but we're headquartered in Kansas City, and I'm recruiting technical folks for the most part. They've got big aspirations. They think, oh, I need to be East Coast, West Coast, or at least Kansas City, Denver, Dallas, wherever. They have this perception that they can't flourish and thrive and grow in even Wichita, which is just weird. It's not, it's a big town still, right? But they have this idea that they can't grow like they want to in Wichita or any other, Topeka, Salina, Manhattan, wherever, and it's just, you've got to really stress the importance to your recruits of making sure their career goals are still going to be met, even though you're maybe not in a huge metropolitan city.
Roberto? Some of the challenges I've seen over time, some organizations just not paying attention to their overall candidate experience. And what I mean by that is from beginning to end, when someone is going to look at your organization, what's going to happen? What's the first thing that they do when you get online with them there in that process? What is their experience along the line? And if you were at the previous sessions, one of the interns, they said some great things about it. They really spoke loudly of the things they were talking about. But one of them said, some organizations don't even have a career path to show them. And they've got them to that point, to whatever point they got them to interview, to visit them, but at some point they went ahead and disregarded them because it's just a good career path. So looking at your whole candidate experience from beginning to end, you can have the greatest recruitment marketing plan and pamphlets and a great showcase and everything, great recruiters, but if at some point through the process, you don't see from beginning to end, you can have the best plan and still fail. Some of the best.
One of the things we heard from the students this morning was we asked them about what they were looking for in an employer. Several of them echoed that they wanted not just the company to talk to people on team and working through the processes and things of nature. One example was when they celebrate, how they celebrate when they win a project. And they weren't just looking for, hey, we're going to go down to the bar and have a drink, but how the employees interacted in recognizing that it was a team effort and everybody had a hand in making that happen, and really encouraging everybody that at the end of the day, they accomplished something as that team, and that was an interesting perspective from that standpoint. Let's talk in terms of, we talked diversity and talked about the different target audiences. Our industry, both, I don't want to take away from, I think engineering, design, and construction have almost identical challenges. We have typically, in the surveys that I see, and I've been following this now for almost 30 years, construction, I can't say on the engineering, architectural side, but construction is ranked 248 out of 250 careers that are surveyed by graduating seniors. It's been consistent that way now for at least 20 plus years. We're only outperforming the migrant workers and the mining industry. Now, take in mind that's perception of graduating seniors, and we all know perception's reality. They also went as far as to say in the survey, when you think of construction, what do you think of? The typical response is a white male that's mid-50s, about 75 pounds overweight, that's on a street corner with a shovel, digging a ditch with a pickup truck full of beer cans. Okay, that's perception, and that's reality. My question to the panel is, knowing that we're dealing with some of those things, knowing that we have 51, maybe now 52, 53% of our workforce being female, and in this state we enjoy diversity with Hispanic workers, African American workers, female, migrant workers coming in through the immigration processes. What are y'all as employers and consultants doing to try to tap in to those particular markets? What are you doing to change, obviously, in some of your marketing materials and things of nature, but anything unusual or more over the call of duty than what you did, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Well, I'll start it off, Mike. I think of this like a pipe, if you will, whether it's the water going from one place to another, filtration plant over to your house. Or in this case, we've got to have a bunch of workers coming forward that know what they're doing. Now, when I grew up as a kid, a lot of older folks in this room know you grew up on a farm or you had folks around that you learned from, right? We've got to have more apprenticeships. We've got to have more internships. Now, if the internships are for only college graduates, you know, or in their third, fourth year at Pittsburgh State or at Cage State, that's fine. That's a fairly small group. But we got to have folks know how to hold a hammer, know how to make good use of the saw, whatever kind of saw it is. Make sure they make every good decision on the job site. So starting early, this idea of the individual plan of study is crucial. Now, that means that everyone in this room needs to talk with their legislators and the people that are in their local schools to make sure kids have that opportunity, because they're not getting it on the farm. They're not getting it from, say, the opportunities that you would have putting a wrench in your hand or sawing. They can in school, if the funding's there and if the instructors are there. So we've got to have people coming from the industry into our classrooms because they know how it's done, not necessarily the instructors that are there, but the ones that will come in with the practical skills. The more we can get hands-on with these kids, the better. And they're eating it up. They're coming on strong. That program that Mike talked about, that 155, has quadrupled. It signed into law in 2012. I was there when Sam Brownback signed it over here at WTC. Now it is the point there's so many students that are excited about this. They're really turned on. They're coming in. But they've got to have something after that junior and senior year in high school, summer employment, opportunity to get hands-on on some job sites. They've learned some things in the classroom. Now they got to be on the job sites, and that's where you folks come in.
Well, if we're going to do that, we're going to go to the legislature and the insurance community and get the regulations changed so we can actually have them on the job site.
Absolutely. That's another key in the cog here, that's for sure.
Great point, Scott.
Well, one of the things that's been successful for us is going, back further, as you were talking earlier about going back to elementary school. Sounds like in the construction area there's more of a challenge there, but we're trying to do more shadow days with high school students so that they can come in and that they can be exposed. Obviously encouraging both males and females, but we know that you've got to put the project in front of them so that they can understand what it is that we're doing in technology, what we're doing in survey, what we're doing on the engineering side. So our company's really involved in getting involved with different organizations in the communities that we're in to try to make some sort of impact. had shadow days there as well. You know, there's also, we're trying to do some things a little bit different with our benefits. Not that it's different with what other companies are doing, but it's different for us. We just rolled out paternity-maternity bonding policy where we have company pay time for males or females for the adoption of the birth of a child. We've worked really hard this last 6 years to create an environment that is flexible, meaning maybe you do 4-day weeks, maybe you work part of your day from home. Like I said, we have a certain number of offices, but we've got employee owners that are in multiple states, so understanding that maybe there's a situation where they need to follow a spouse or a significant other to another state, and so we offer them the opportunity to work in a different state. Part of what we're doing is trying to focus on the retention as well. We have 21% females in our company. We have less than 5% on minorities. So one of the things we've got to do is we've got to get good at keeping the talent that we have and going out and encouraging the diversity as they're coming into the field. So just some things that we've been trying to do.
Bill?
And the National Association of Women in Construction our focus is getting into the elementary schools. And if a young girl sees that adult women are out there on the industry doing hands-on, doing the trades, as well as the engineering, that's kind of like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So the Camp Nawick video that I brought kind of reinforces that. It allows them to do the hands-on skills and get a taste of the engineering and other aspects of it through actually doing it, a week-long experience for high school-age girls. NAWIC also has the elementary building blocks contest where it gets the little guys, thinking about doing building and say, well, yeah, I can do this too. So our focus is starting them young, and then we've got programs that go all the way through high school and into education as adults when they are in the field of construction.
So with your labor and craft trades, a lot of your workforce is Hispanic, right? So the HR organization I'm a part of partnered with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce a couple of years back to do a program. We talked about what is it that we can do to attract and retain the Hispanic workforce, because it does look different from other cultures and other races. And the best piece of advice I heard from that is you have to go to where they are. So a lot of Hispanics may not get on the internet and search for jobs. So where do you go post jobs for them? Go to their churches, go to their community centers. Word of mouth is a great way to get applicants as well. So who do they know? How are you rewarding for referrals? Do they want to refer their friends and their family members into your company because they love the culture and they want to bring them in too? Those are all aspects to think about, but really targeting the market that you have and seeing how do I reach them. Is it through advertising on the Hispanic radio station locally? Is it through attending events and having a presence in those kind of Hispanic cultural events? And then even billboards along the highway where people are driving and things like that are some of the things some of my clients are doing to be a little more creative in how they get to those applicants that may not just see a traditional ad or website online.
I'm going to echo several things that have been said here already, a little bit about outreach and reaching out, starting in elementary school all the way up. Barnes and Max started a significant amount of outreach since I've worked there. If you're from Kansas City, you know about Science City. And if you're here in Wichita, you know about Exploration Place and things like that. And I think really, like several of them said, starting young a little bit has really helped in it. Just a little proof, little proof in the pudding here. If I think about the top 5 new recruits, young grads that we've hired in my career, the top performing 5, all women. They're all women. I don't know if that's just coincidence or not.
It's a statement. Bart?
Same thing, I piggyback off of Carrie.
It's very
Piggyback off of what Carrie mentioned. It truly comes down again to having the resources internally within your organization. And many contractors do not have the resources and time to develop recruitment marketing programs specifically aimed at a specific target audience and to kind of thought going further into that is, in order to really successfully do that, you kind of have to develop that target audience within your organization first, and have that going, because at the end of the day, just like the previous session, people choose an organization based on their culture, and really what they're saying is whether or not I will fit in. So again, looking at your organization currently is pretty important.
We're gonna start down here and work our way back. The younger generation is the generation of this. And how are your respective, whether you're a consultant or a company or your individual companies, utilizing social media to be able to reach out to those target audiences? Because obviously, and appreciate in terms of people looking at billboards and advertisements, and newspapers and magazines and things of that nature. But I guess I've got some K-staters and Pittsburgh staters. Do you look at billboards and newspapers, or do you look at things that come up on this? And I said, so I'll start with Humberto. What things are you seeing out there where utilization of social media to target a specific target audience, or a broader audience, or just reinforcing certain messaging that's out there?
Yeah, it depends on what your target audience is, and you're right. How many of the contractors here and the HR staff only utilize newspaper job postings? Probably no one does anymore. It's changed, and it's changed rapidly. And it's become to the point where it's really important to have someone knowledgeable in I don't know, the term cyber recruitment, maybe. If you're tasking an HR department head or a recruiter that is not even knowledgeable in social media, you're behind. And if you feel that person will get it at some point, they probably won't unless they somehow start Snapchatting in the beginning at 8 a.m. and throughout their entire day, or whatever it may be, right? It's important to understand your target audience and where they're first going to get a glimpse and taste of your organization. That could be either through Snapchat, it could be through Instagram. It just depends where you want to tell your story. But it's very, very critical in that part to understand that that position has changed, and it's no longer just a recruiter that just can put out an ad on CareerBuilder or Indeed and just think that they'll come in through the door.
Students, you mentioned this morning where you're looking at things. What would you say is the top two social media forums that you look at on a routine basis? Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram? What are the top two?
Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
MySpace.
So I'm hearing Facebook, Snapchat,
Facebook and Instagram.
Instagram? Okay. And everybody is more familiar because it's been around for a lot longer on Facebook. What stimulates you on the Snapchat portion of things?
Well, the Instagram, like,
Or Instagram, excuse me.
yeah, it's just like mainly pictures and not as much text, so it's kind of like catches your eye, and then you can click into it and read it more. And they do ads on there all the time that I end up clicking on and looking to buy stuff that I don't really need.
Well, and I say that because not everybody knows the details, what's the hottest thing that you are looking at or why you're looking at it. So I don't assume that everybody is familiar with all the different forms that are out there. Ty?
I don't know if I'm going to say anything that hasn't already been said. The answer is yes, Mike. We use it all over the place. It's, you know, and not just for younger talent either. It's across the board. It's very effective, obviously, on younger folks, but even, you know, guys that are my age and maybe not quite your age, Mike.
Not sure.
But it's very effective across the board. Absolutely, we use almost every platform.
Within social media or beyond on your website, provide real snippets of people at work and videos, things like that, so people can get an authentic snapshot of what it's like to work for your company. That can work and be successful, and people want to see that real side of things and not just a professionally produced video. So employee posted videos, which you sometimes have a little bit of risk with, can be really good as long as you've got a little control over that, but involving your employees to say, hey, I'm on this project and I'm live and this is what I'm doing, and people can get a lot from that.
Is LinkedIn anything you guys do? I'm wondering how busy social media is here to stay, that's for sure. And I didn't know if it was anything you guys used.
So I've been in HR long enough, I'm so going to show my age here, I'll just put it out there, I'm 51. But when I started in HR, we didn't have phones, by the way, and if you were special, you had a bag phone, and it weighed about 50 pounds. And then as it went on, we had the flip phones, and then we got to the smartphones, but I've been in HR long enough that when we got to the point that we had cell phones, you were hiding if you were using them, because, my God, you didn't use them at work, because that was just for social purposes, that was just for personal purposes. I am texting people all the time now for business-related purposes and candidates. And, you know, to a comment that was made earlier about recruiters, we just hired a recruiter I didn't know how old he was when I hired him. Come to find out I could be his mom, that's great. But, you know, most of our conversation actually was through text. I mean, we had a lot of face-to-face interviews, because that's our process, and we talked over the phone, but he and I were constantly texting, and I'm texting from my desk, trying to text him at night. Because what we have found with the interns that we brought in is that when we were sending emails, they weren't responding. And so when we were doing our exit interviews with interns, what they were sharing with us was, we're not checking your email, which was like mind-blowing, because I'm thinking this is part of your job, right? But okay, we're learning. They said, we check our emails. That's what we're looking at for the most part.
Employers, you seeing that same thing, email versus text, in terms of stepping up and getting direct communication? The only problem with that, and we're seeing, and we've had these discussions in our advisory council, AGC's advisory council with both Pittsburgh State and K-State, is on the job site, it's so critical to have verbal communication. And because everybody, and I know the schools are doing a bang-up job with their, on the higher ed side, but on the high school level, the community college, that's some work that we have to do. And the fact that if you cannot carry yourself in terms of interpersonal skills and communication skills, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble, and you're going to create major headaches for your boss on the job site and the company you work for. So there's good and bad when we deal with these type of situations. And fortunately, through advisory council, and this goes back to something that Walt and several other people said, that there's a critical part of what we're trying to do here in the human resource side and the actual hiring process is the internship that has to come after they're on the job. And a lot of that has been lost over the years. Organized labor did a great job back 50 years ago with formal apprenticeship programs and created a lot of things, but they also got a little too big for their britches in some cases, and they're now down to less than 5% of the construction marketplace across the country because they outpriced themselves. Now they're making a comeback in some areas, but a lot of the training that they did from those displaced workers found their way over to the open shop side of things. And the trick is to keep that going. Walt, what are you seeing?
Well, I wanted to come in with some practical stuff as well. I appreciate that. You know, on this handout I gave you guys, there's some links to specific websites. This is a real key process of trying to reach out to employers, folks like yourselves who might be able to offer an internship, but more specifically the apprenticeship. We've got to start these folks out young enough and early enough so they stay with it and get into the program at PSU and K-State. That isn't going to happen unless they've had an opportunity to grow along the way. So you're going to see on the bottom of this one here, you're going to see the contact information for the registered apprenticeship opportunities. And there's an Greg who's mentioned at the bottom of the page. So there's a phone number, there's an email or a website address. You've got one here from Workforce Alliance. They had 1,600 students involved last summer, just in South Central Kansas. And you're going to see that workforce-kansas.com with a phone number. These folks are trying to reach out to you. They're trying to provide opportunities for you, and you've got to connect. It's got to be a two-way street. And so the communication may be by text or by email or website. There are a lot of different mediums to come back to Mike's question. But here are some concrete examples. And one other I wanted to share with you folks is on this first page here on carpentry. You're going to see Skills USA. If some of you will show up at those events, you're going to be amazed at how well some of these students are performing. They're given practical, real-world problems to solve. They've got a certain amount of time to solve it. And it may be a CAD program, it may be a construction project, it may be a pour of concrete. There are specific things these students have to do, and you're going to find which ones you want to hire, which ones you want to bring on. Now back to the question about insurance. Many times, if this is done, the apprenticeships, the summer work for you, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, for example, that could be done through the school district and their insurance policy. The same way with Workforce Alliance. They're using federal grants, they've got money, they're able to provide that cover for you as an employer to a major extent. I can't say to 100% because nothing's 100%. But I would say to you that it minimizes your risk to bring on some of these folks and give them specific jobs, supervised, not just turn them loose, say, okay, go this, but make sure they're working under supervision. And follow up with Skills USA. It's done every spring. You're going to find some excellent examples of folks you want to bring under your wing.
Okay. Several of the folks in this room are intricately involved in Skills USA. In fact, AGC facilitates one of the major Skills USA competitions. We were a little disappointed they moved their programming from Wichita up to Hutch, but the new director felt that was in the game plan for what she was trying to do. But what I was trying to say is we had great participation from employers down here. Why would you want to take it and move it away from them? But we're bringing that back in the fold, Walt. You gave a couple examples, Walt, of some links to some websites. What other links or resources are out there that you have seen that are helpful? And I know that Bev is itching to show us a short video. I know she has something, a resource that she'd like to share, but anything from Bartlett West in terms of a resource?
I can share a couple before you move on down the table.
Okay.
I want to give you a chance to write down a website address. Can you all write down ksde.org? KSDE.org is the State Department of Education, and there's two names. The director is Scott Smith. Scott Smith, easy to remember, right? Second one is Stacy Smith. He's the associate director. Now, the reason I mention that is because these folks are involved no matter where you are in the state. I've given you examples of Workforce Alliance there in Wichita and South Central Kansas, but these are across the state, and you're going to be able to tie into some of those skills training in any of the high schools that are part of the Senate Bill 155 or any of the construction projects. I'm thinking of Crossland Construction. Some of you guys know about their work in Southeast Kansas, right? Their work in Baxter Springs. You guys know about some of that work. They really give these kids hands-on experience under supervision, and it starts early enough. So when those kids are coming out of high school, they're ready to go. You don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff. They've already proven themselves on the job site. So get them early, get them under your wing, move through that process, and these folks at the state level can help them as well in trying to make those link-ups between who's coming on, who's got the skills, and the mental aptitude to follow up, follow instructions, not just screw up on a job site.
So, with resources, gosh, we use a lot of local organizations. We ask our employee owners at conferences that they've attended. We look at conference attendee lists, quite honestly, and ask for their help and maybe helping us source some of those attendees that we might want to reach out to. And we do a lot of social media, trying to create a brand awareness. It's something that we are getting ready to look at in partnership with our marketing department, and honestly, I don't know where it's going to go, I don't know the cost yet, but it's fascinating to me as we've learned that we've got to figure out how to optimize in terms of search engine, and when we have an opening or when we're looking for talent, that Bartlett and West rises to the top. We know that people don't necessarily go out to job boards when they're happily employed. And so there's a group, it's called Multiview, that we're going to be meeting with, and I'll share that, I don't know if anybody already works with them, that their goal, what they do is they partner with companies, and so when you're on Instagram and you're looking at those things to buy that maybe you don't need, you know, that artificial intelligence on the back end, right? It's building a profile. Well, with Multiview, what they're telling us that they can do is that they can help target individuals that may have an interest in the fields or the positions that we have open, and then our jobs will just start popping up. Now, that's something that we can do with Facebook, yeah, but we're thinking just, you know, going out on the internet when somebody's doing a Google search or Internet Explorer, whatever search engine they're looking for, we're trying to figure out how to get in front of them and get them even thinking about Bartlett and West. So that's something that we're going to be exploring here within the next month.
I'm gonna come back to that in just a second. There you go.
How many of your companies hire felons? So there's a, thanks.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that because AGC met 3 months ago with the entire hierarchy of the Kansas Department of Correction. All of their facilities are using NCCR training curriculum. In fact, Corey Bayless, our safety and training director, does all the train-the-trainer for those instructors in those facilities. Just down the road at El Dorado Correctional Facility, they have about 50 low-risk felons that are using the NCCR masonry program. Monarch Cement has donated the cement and block. We've been out there to work with their folks, but we are, as a service to our members, close to getting a commitment to having them showcase through our portal with Build Up Kansas what they're doing, and then have the ability for those folks that are getting ready to be released to post their resumes. The way HR directors, as they get ready to release, could have direct communication with them, and they could talk with the key folks within those facilities to verify, you know, what their risk is and things of the nature. But what's interesting is we've been doing this now for 3 or 4 years in a non-traditional recruiting, that the masonry subs in and around the Wichita area say the hires that they've made out of that facility are in most cases better workers than what they have in their current workforce. So we are continuing to look at that non-traditional, and you are right on target that there's a great resource. Leavenworth and a couple other facilities have. In fact, Leavenworth reached out to us. They needed an HVAC instructor, and we turned to, most of you know, Joe Samia over at Central Consolidated. He had a couple of retired employees that were up in that area, and they were looking for make a little extra money, and they went to work over there training those low-risk inmates at Leavenworth on HVAC. And Leavenworth is getting ready to add carpentry and cement, masonry, and a couple others as time goes on. But I didn't want to interrupt. I want to give a real life example.
So a lot of employers are hesitant to hire convicted felons because of the risk to the company. Will they do something? If they were in prison for theft or assault or something like that, there's certainly some risk that you have as an employer, but that's a large population that may be good for your labor force or the training that you craft. And the Society for Human Resource Management, which is shrn.org, just recently over the weekend announced a partnership with Koch Industries of getting talent back to work, specifically targeted on resources and toolkits that employers can use to make sure they have some policies in place for reviewing those convictions and what you need to do so that you're a little bit more protected. So that's another resource for you, but also another portion of the labor market that you might not consider at this point. And might be really important to grow your workforce.
I think that's a really good thing to investigate, because I think if you go around the room and ask who in here feels like people coming out of the prison system deserve a second chance and an opportunity at work, and I think everyone's raising their hands when it comes down to, are you ready to hire someone? I'm not sure how to go about doing that.
And a lot of times they just made a bad decision when they were maybe even younger, and they're not that same person.
Right.
Not always, but.
You'd be surprised the type of training they're getting. That's why we have spent a lot of time in El Dorado is a microcosm of the other facilities, but they get a lot of soft skill training and interpersonal skills and things of that nature. And what we have seen from the employers that have hired, these folks are wanting to go improve themselves. But yeah, they made a mistake, but they go the extra mile. What about, you touched on the non-traditional. What about from a military standpoint, National Guard, things of that nature? What are you seeing from that standpoint?
Yeah, so our local chapter of SHRM partners with McConnell to help individuals with resumes, interviewing skills, and then actually placing employers. So that's definitely an untapped market too, where a lot of those veterans have skills that you would need in your job. So there are definitely some areas to get involved there. If you're interested in learning more about that, just come talk to me and I can give you some resources.
Right?
Yeah, so a couple of different resources that we use. So on the younger side, our intern and co-op program is huge. We recruit so many interns every single year, and it's kind of a good way to do an interview for 3 months, right? And recruit the best talent that way. So that's one thing we do on the younger side. On the more experienced side, we talked earlier about using conferences and, things like that. And on the more experienced side, this is such a relationship-based industry. And so we rely on all of our relationships all over the place, across the state, across the country, everywhere for that recruitment.
Similar to what Carrie mentioned, I've seen organizations definitely successfully utilize the work release program. Not only that, take it even further as a best practice to actually, just like some organizations concentrate on their internship program to create all these different steps, organizations actually have created a program to kind of help that person kind of leak out into society with many things, and even go through things like WSU Tech's carpentry program and pay for that and get them going to create loyalty and obviously everything else and retaining that person. Been pretty successful.
Bev, I'm not gonna say we want to see the entire 6 minutes, but could we get a little snippet
Okay.
of what you've got?
Sure, and I did want to say that NAWIC is a resource because we have national networking at conferences, regional as well, and if you've got a job opening across the country for a project you have, NAWIC connection is next to none. It's got hundreds and hundreds of success stories in that regard.
Well, let's see what you have in terms of that one video, and like I said,
All
man, I
right,
get the
well,
whole.
if I need to stop it.
Well, I'd like to
Teacher or an
do some
instructor
questions
at
from
Camp
y'all.
because you get to see the light go off in their heads, when they understand something that you're doing, and the satisfaction of knowing that you've given a little girl an encouragement to pursue a career.
I couldn't believe how much money you can actually make in construction, from the trade side to the management side. There is money in this field. I think a lot of people also don't look at it as a career. A lot of people see construction as a job. And there's definitely career opportunities in construction.
You can learn and grow and switch from the field and go into business or whatever you're bringing to do.
There are wonderful opportunities for you in this industry. You're invited, you're encouraged, I'm excited to see everybody in this room, that you're taking the time to focus in on our industry.
Down the bottom right-hand corner.
I think it's such a great opportunity for women your age to get to experience some hands-on and just figure out what you can and can't do.
I've been to several different camps, and it was definitely one of the most hands-on kind of activities I've been part of, and it was so much fun because that's the best favorite way.
Last year we had like 15 girls doing this, now we have 24, 25 girls doing it. And I came back because it's just a really cool opportunity to have.
I loved looking at the job site tour because you can see, like, through the different floors, you can see it all, like, coming together and seeing the different stages and what the different trades are doing and at what stage they do their job. You know, it's one of those things that once you understand it, you're never going to look at something the same way. So, you know, now that I look at the walls, I'm like, I know what's behind the wall. I know the electricity is connected and everything. And so it's definitely a nice experience to go through. My favorite part is getting to learn about all the trades and all the different skills that you never thought you could do. Not only learning those skills, it's learning about a different career path that you have an option to take. Kent Naywick influenced my choice of career because I got to do hands-on things and see if I would like to do that for a career. I think that girls and women should consider a career in construction because there is a role that females play in it with their kind of like different set of skills from male. And I think that in order for a job to be like truly complete, it's kind of always nice to have that balance between male and female.
Women can do anything, and also if they love doing it, then might as well go and do it.
People kind of sometimes look down on construction, but it's a fun and interacting job. If you love that, definitely pursue it.
Then we're gonna cut it right there. Good. Question for you. These are done throughout the year, once a year?
Once a year in the early summer is when they're mostly held. Maybe some of them hold them like over spring breaks, but they're done all over the country.
Okay. Well, let's open up the floor here. You've got 6 professionals in several different areas, from consulting to design professional to construction. What's on your mind? Yes, sir.
From a student's perspective, like being recruited, when you get, like I say, a student would get an offer and for like at a state or whatever, and financially they didn't think they could do it. How do you guys feel about them giving a counter offer of like a couple more dollars an hour or something like that? Is that an acceptable thing to do, or does that just like diminish the character of that person?
No, my opinion is you should absolutely negotiate. I mean, so the way that we look at compensation, we break it down by obviously position and the skills, and we look at cost of labor in a specific geographic market. And so, like we had somebody recently who was looking at for Jeff City and Missouri and St. Louis, and the cost of labor in St. Louis and the cost of living is significantly higher. And so we looked at different wages if he were to go to a different market, and he was very much engaged in that process. And I mean, quite honestly, we expect it. That being said, we want to put our best foot forward. I mean, we're not out there to lowball somebody, quite honestly. I mean, we want to make a good impression. We want to make an impression that's reflective of who we are as a company. And so we're going to put our best foot forward out there. We're going to look at the experience that you're bringing into it, because we recognize that quite often you've got great internship experience. And so we're going to take that into consideration. So know that, I mean, every company is different, but we're going at it with what we feel is a very fair offer based off of what we understand the geography and your experience. But if you feel like, and if you're able to demonstrate that really compensation for that same position is maybe higher in that market, then we want to have that conversation with you. Absolutely.
To expand on that? Other questions?
I totally agree, you should negotiate. Don't push it too far. So, you know, if you get an offer for $50,000 a year or something, I'm making this up, you say, how about 75? Yeah, right, obviously that's an exaggeration. But even if they say, you know, well, if you say, how about 60? They come back and say, well, you know, we can offer you a few $1,000s. Don't keep doing it back and forth or anything like that.
It's not like last night that having Lonnie McCurdy, What you said, Jim?
I was just going to say, kind of along those same lines, that the salary is one thing, that the wage scale is one thing, the benefit packages have become so complicated that in my work as advisors to Kansas State, there's been a lot of discussion about how do we how do we compare compensation from one offer to the next and that kind of thing? Do you guys feel like you're being prepared to evaluate some of those things? Because, you know, health benefits are one thing, but when you start looking at, you know, retirement packages and different things like that, you just don't have a whole lot of appreciation for them when they're presented to you sometimes.
Is that, let me ask the younger generation, when you're talking to a potential employer, salary, benefits, retirement, what is your ears or eyes zoom into here? What catches your attention?
When he talks, I guess. It does to an extent, but it also, you don't want to work a job that say you make a great amount of money, but you hate it. That's just me personally. I'm not going to go to work every day and just hate my life just to make it more money.
But, and that's a great point, but that's, I hope that everyone understands that should be a given, that if you don't like what you're doing, go find, there's plenty of other opportunities to do something.
It's been my experience, though, that what you're saying is really the nuts and bolts of the offer still is the money that was discussed in the location, what you're doing.
I really am interested in retirement plans, but as far as the other benefits, as like healthcare and whatnot, I don't understand. I asked my mom, my dad, to explain this stuff to me. Is this even good?
Kelly, is that a hard thing to describe to a new employee?
You know what I have found fascinating over the last 5 years is the lack of questions that we're getting about health insurance. We've been having this conversation within our team recently about, are we sharing too much, are we not sharing enough? Because I'm just blown away at the lack of questions. But when you are hiring individuals that are under the age of 26, they often don't have questions because they're already covered by their parents. But even the more experienced generation, I've been very surprised. I don't know if we're giving them enough information or not, but what we're finding, it's about the base, is what they want to talk about.
As a faculty advisor, I'll kind of agree with that, the fact that maybe it's a place where we need to do more for our students, because I regularly have students after they've had some interviews like, I got this offer, this one's more money, but how do I compare this to both? And I have to educate them a little bit about what benefits packages are, what that means, what the cost of living effects are. And maybe that's something we need to integrate better into what we teach.
Well, and I will say our advisory councils on both sides has brought that to both Pittsburgh State and K-State and Fort Hays' attention. The faculty has told us that that's something that has not been a requirement. That, again, you've heard me say this, and you probably don't want to hear it again, but the East and West Coast recognize the central part of the country for some work ethic, so they're willing to throw a little bit more money, in some cases a lot more money, but we're finding that you may get $20,000 or $30,000, but it's going to cost you $70,000 or $80,000 in cost of living. So we as an industry, and I guess chime in, any one of you on this particular subject matter, but we as AGC are working with the Chambers of Commerce to then put together something that we can give as a resource for the kids to understand. And I say kids, you guys are adults, but the fact is, they don't know it, and they learn a hard lesson. We've talked to some that went to San Diego and said, man, it's great out there, but man, I didn't realize I'm actually taking about a $50,000 hit because I thought I was getting a good deal, but it wasn't as good as what I thought. In your discussions or consulting or things of that nature, when you're talking about, hey, go to Wichita, and they say, no, I'm going to Houston, or Houston may not be a good example because there's pretty close cost of living there, but if they say, I'm going to New York or Los Angeles, do y'all bring that in this time?
Absolutely. That's one of my main selling points. Not main, but it's a key selling point about Wichita. We've got a lot of our younger folks that want to be in Denver. Denver's just so cool or whatever, and it is crazy.
Well, we heard a keynote speaker today. You saw how she dressed, so she dressed really cool in that picture she presented.
But yeah, no, absolutely cost of living.
I'd like to come up with an idea that some of you relate to. It's all about location, right? Location, location, location. It's real estate. It has to do with a lot of different things. It's up to both parties in the negotiation. I've owned a construction company, been a general contractor. I've completed projects in 18 states and 3 foreign countries. I find that every time it's different. Labor has to do with the skills you're hiring for, and secondly, what's the going rate in that location. You've got to be informed. I'm pointing at the young folks here. You've got to come into the negotiation knowing what you're worth, what your skills are worth in that location, and what additional things you bring to the table, so as you're negotiating, you're coming in smart, thoughtful. That is not often taught at the university level, right? You have to do some of that digging on your own. Ask questions, find out from other people, from other employees of that company. They may or may not tell you, but you're going to find out if you dig what it is that's a going rate. And be realistic. What are the costs of living? What are you going to have to deal with? As Mike says, that can get completely out of bounds. You may get a few $100s more a month, but then you're looking at rent and utilities that are going to wipe you out.
Well, and also during that homework, California and New York right now are seeing a lot of out-migration, and really it's all driven because of taxes and regulations, and their bordering states are benefiting significantly because of it. And that's going to continue based on some of the recent news events that have taken place, especially in New York State. But the fact is, sometimes the grass isn't always greener. Well, one last question from the audience. You've got
Sure you can't have one from each guy at the table? We both have one.
tag team. Go ahead.
Good. One thing I was going to ask the students is, in the roofing industry, and I'm guessing in overall construction, is you've got to cover your overhead on jobs. So coming into a career or a job, you're going to have probably a base salary. And that salary is simply so the company can meet and obtain their overhead. Now with that comes a lot of opportunity, you know, with bonuses if you're not a commissioned employee, but you really have to believe in your team and your, you know, that's from the guys doing the work to the guys bidding the work to reach that extra level. So you're really putting some hope and belief in your team to reach that maybe financial goal you want, but the base salary coming out of it is shockingly not what you'd think coming out of school or trade school. So is that, do you guys see that faith in companies, feel that faith if you're going to only stay in a job 2 to 4 years, you're not really going to see the benefit of that through the cyclical waves?
Anyone care to respond? That's an open-ended question there, but.
I do have faith, but it's, I guess I kind of look at it more as I have faith in what I can do, and I think that I personally will make a good contribution to this team. So hopefully the company will look at that and respond accordingly.
Have the same faith in you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You
So
can only control what you can control.
exactly. I am a strong believer that it is the A-team effort, but I got to do what I got to do to contribute to that team.
Follow-up question.
No, I'm good. I'm good. You guys kind of touched on it earlier, just talking about, the main point I was going to make is I think that the private industry, the companies here, I think most everybody knows like what value they provide, you know, and what things to highlight. Like, hey, this is something we know we differentiate from our competitor, and they know how to do that. But I think as an industry, we do have to get better about beating our chest and being proud as Kansas contractors about saying, you know, not be afraid to negatively recruit some of the outside, you know, be positive, but try to really set that stage. I think it's like career pathing. You know, career pathing, so many companies don't do a good job of that. I think you got to get these kids excited about coming to work, and part of that's the money discussion. You can't hide from that. It's got to be something that's on the table. You can't hold your cards as much as you think you used to. You've got to be a little bit more open about that process.
Well, that's a great point. You've heard probably the last couple of days and some of the things that we've summarized. In some ways, this state takes things for granted. Taking things for granted like our work ethic, like our quality of life. I will promise you, the farther west you move in this country, some of that quality of life seems to be forgotten or just thrown aside. And we need to do more to showcase the best of what we have to offer. And I think as we've heard over the last couple of days from these students, whether it be out of these meetings or in these meetings, that at the end of the day, we will prevail. But being a small state, we have to work harder, faster, and smarter than some of these bigger states that have a lot more capacity and maybe have, in their minds, a lot more bells and whistles. And I'm a believer I can dispel that, because like I said, I've been from one side of the state to the other, and north and south, and I would stack a lot of things that we do in this state against anything. I know a lot of best practices around the country with my colleagues. They're coming to us to say, how did y'all do this? How did y'all do that? So kudos to the construction design community, because we have a lot to be proud of. I do want to thank this panel. There's a tremendous, I didn't ask, it didn't add up the number of years of experience that we have sitting here, but we have a tremendous amount. A very diversified, we talked about diversity today. We have a lot of diversity, and we will continue to build on that. But we're going to look at how we build a matrix of offering some other type forms like this in Construct 2020. We believe we're talking 2020, just around the corner. But we depend on you, the attendees. Shoot me an email. Shoot your corresponding association an email and say, I like that, but man, if you added just this or that, it'd be even better. So we're always looking for that input, and you can make that happen. This is going to conclude the overall construct. I hope you had an enjoyable time. I hope you walk away with a return on investment of whether it be money or time. But let's give these panelists a round of applause.